everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
Do you ever do those speaking exercises where you're just given a topic and you just kind of stand up spontaneously and talk about it? Ever do those things?
Oh, sure.
This is kind of like that. It's kind of originally, okay, I'm going to be at service in Beaverton today with Lorna talking, and I'll just sort of be there, lead the purification, but then talk. But then all of a sudden things shift around. It's like, oh, you want to do the talk tomorrow? Sure. So I would like to propose that to all of us as kind of an example of what it's like to just sort of say yes to life, say yes to light, and step right into it and just reflect on what it is that this is all about. And a couple of thoughts, and mostly Swami's, just from having read some of his stuff, but I'll share some of those things. It's a little, it's esoteric, and it's not. This whole thing about light shining in darkness, what's that about? And the interior radiances, okay, so I'm not quite at that level that Master was at with Ram Gopal Muzumdar, seeing the light blazing inside, outside. That exists, and it's in us, and we perceive that in various ways from time to time, but okay, so maybe that's not my reality most of the time. Maybe some of you have that, I don't know, but let's just step it down a little bit, okay? How can we bring light into ourselves when we're not feeling it so much? And why does it exist anyway? Why is this whole battle going on? Most of the movies that are out there seem to be kind of a battle of light versus dark, isn't that true? And we're attracted to those. Why is it that the Harry Potter series is just so good and so engaging, book, and movie to movie to movie, and it's all about light versus darkness, and we're just so engaged with it. And Star Wars and Star Trek and just all those things. Why can't it just be light all the time? Even as a kid, I just remember thinking, why can't everybody just be happy all the time? Why? I don't know, it seemed like a good idea at the time. But the fact is, we're here, this is the way it is, what do we do about it? And that's a really good question. What do we do about it? Because I think that the issue of why is it this way, that's kind of a stage along the way of just sort of realizing, oh, why is it this way? And those great saints that are quoted, that see those radiances, they also say that when you see Divine Mother and when you learn the reason for it all, then there's no question. You just say, oh, okay, it all makes sense now. You may not like it. You may kind of say, Divine Mother, people are suffering. They're taking it seriously. So how can we help out? And basically the answer is we just help out as best we can. First of all, we have to know and experience that inner light. I love the affirmation on happiness because it's just perfect. How do we be happy? How do we remember the light? I'd like to just sort of turn the word around a little bit. Light not only means light versus dark, but it also means feeling light versus heavy, which Aaron could probably talk a lot about with Education for Life principles. It's so great sharing those with kids because they get a chance to just experience those in their lives early on and see, oh, what does it feel to be light versus what does it feel to be heavy? Part of it is being heavy is sort of taking yourself too seriously. And being light is not. It's maybe identifying with a larger reality where you're just part of it. Recently I've seen some, the videos that people share and the talks that people give and such, but it's interesting. One person, well, actually, it turns out that it's the author of the book Eat, Pray, Love, whose name I'm forgetting, but anyway.
Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yeah. And she gave a really good TED Talk, really good one, some years ago, but it was brilliant because, brilliant, light, it's funny, all these words that have to do with light, right? She essentially, in words that didn't say God until the very end, she was talking about how do we tune into a reality larger than ourselves? And she also pointed out that kind of historically, when people tend to take themselves too seriously, like for example, when the Renaissance and all that time when artists kind of felt that they were just all of a sudden really important and they just needed to, carry a responsibility to feel creativity and to feel inspiration. then they started going crazy a lot. And so I think we do too. When we tend to take ourselves a little too seriously, and I have all this responsibility I have to do, if we're stepping outside of that, looking at somebody else do that, it seems a little funny. And there's a lot of movies about that, about people taking themselves too seriously, and then eventually, of course, they slip on a banana peel and it all crashes. But meanwhile, there's people standing around them kind of saying, look, if only you could see that you were taking yourself a little too seriously, why don't you step out a little bit, get some perspective, lighten up. I had one interview with Swami Kriyananda, brief, when I was caught up in a whirlwind of downward spiraling heaviness, and kind of like, okay, how do I get out of this? And it's true, isn't it? When we're outside of that, everything's fine. But when we're caught up in something, a mood, or I don't know, just a delusion, or any kind of, call it satanic, or call it just caught up in something that's not completely true, or maybe getting overly caught up in anxiety, or worry, or fear. All those things are things that just kind of take us in a downward spiral. And so I, just kind of went blah, blah, blah for a while. And then after about 15 or 20 minutes of that, Swami said, okay, but what I'd like to say, and what I've tried to say before, is don't take yourself so seriously. You become a fanatic. And the spiritual path should not be approached fanatically. And then he went on a little bit, but that was kind of Dambar's personal advice, because he said you get caught up in your brain trying to figure things out, and you get tense. And so for me anyway, that was just kind of, oh yeah, you're right, I do. And by just getting wound up, we get overly wound up, we get tense, and somehow that isn't the definition of levity. Feeling light, feeling light, feeling joyful, feeling happiness inside, really feeling it, feeling just a sense of radiant joy, is kind of the opposite of feeling tense and all those things that you can sort of picture visually, kind of getting all caught up in this little ball of anxiety. And so here's where I'm going to turn it over to you in the kind of spontaneous, what would you do, by actually asking, what do you do at those moments when you're getting caught up in things, to just kind of remember, to remember the light, to remember that larger perspective on stuff, to remember where the true reality is and not the seeming reality when you're caught up in it. Who's going to be the brave first person? Yes, Santosha.
Breathe deeply.
If anybody wants to speak, I would suggest you come forward, because we are videoing.
Okay, but I'd like to say, I'd rather just allow people to speak off camera. Sorry, those millions of you that are watching this, you just have to sort of take our word for it. So, yeah.
I just wanted to say, breathe, to take a few moments and breathe deeply.
Let's do that. Let's just...
And focus on the point between the eyebrows.
Have you ever done that whenever you're kind of caught up in stuff? Just say, wait a minute, breathe deeply. Or your mom told you that, count to 10, breathe. Okay, so that's one great technique. What's another? What have you done? What do you do with kids?
I just
Make a joke.
Be
Make
silly.
a joke.
Be silly, make it silly.
Yeah.
Just get over the top.
Yeah. My aunt, actually, she had one of those little rubber red clown noses. And so she would just sort of stick it on her face. And you would notice how hard it was to be serious with a red clown nose on your face. I've often thought that would be great, like if ever you're in, like in a corporation in a board meeting, or, here, if you're just really kind of in the thick of it with somebody, not that that ever happens here, but, really kind of in a meeting where there's a lot of tension about something. I just love the idea of having like extra red clown noses around. Everybody could just stick one on their face and try to be serious in the midst of that. And it's good, because you just kind of like remember to tickle yourself a little bit and say, okay, wait a minute, in spite of the fact that this seems really serious, from a larger perspective, it's not. And from a larger perspective, there's always an answer, and from a really large perspective, what the heck difference does it make? I mean, whether it falls apart or doesn't, or whether we rise to our best or don't, it's all just about kind of remembering God and remembering joy and just doing our best. Doggone it. And it doesn't really matter that much. Because what more can you do than doing your best? And I kind of, before segueing off and not giving everybody the chance who wants to speak, are there any other fun techniques that you have that just kind of remind you to not take yourself so seriously and remember what it's all about? Yeah.
I start to chant in my head.
Yeah.
Music.
Okay. So or music, or if it's not music, it's japa, just kind of like a phrase, Om Guru, Om Guru.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, Chris.
No, one of the things, there's a lot of different things I do, but one of the things that I do is I close my eyes and use the double breath.
Mm-hmm.
And usually when I do that, actually when I'm closing my eyes, it seems to really like illuminate the spiritual eye a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's something about that that just really like fills me with joy,
Mhm.
and it just helps me to like break through if I'm feeling like
So
anxiety.
everybody try that, and also, try this double breath first. And this time I'm going to ask you, as you do it, inhaling and bring your energy up, focus it here, and then I'm going to ask you to tense the whole body, and then as you exhale, release that tension. Okay, let's do it together. Tense, exhale. Once more, bring it up to spiritual life, and exhale. And as you do that, that as you let that all go, your attention is focused to the spiritual eye, and there's now this kind of relaxed, open, thrilling, tingling presence there at the spiritual eye that's filled with light. And you can open your eyes now. Or maybe you're seeing that light whether your eyes are closed or open, like Master said. Anyway, so whether or not you actually see that light or did, we all see something. We all feel something. Some people just hear a sound of Om, Some people constantly have that, believe it or not, just constantly going on. Some people feel more or see that sense of light more easily. Some people will just feel a sense of lightness inside more easily than others. Everybody is a unique expression of God in lots of different ways. And so it's a big mistake to compare ourselves with others, because when you compare yourself with others, you always lose. That's taking ourselves too seriously. If we want to compare, just remember light, remember joy through all these techniques we've been talking about. Master said, just remember to bring your attention up to the spiritual eye. Because the spiritual eye, the point of our higher consciousness in our brain, is kind of our connection with the light that we feel inside. Teresa Avila described the interior castle. And I love that term because, put yourself in 15th century Spain. What's really big? A castle, A castle is really big. That's kind of that's the impression people have of a big house. A really, really big house is a castle. So the interior castle is whenever you're in meditation and you're calm enough and relaxed enough and doing your techniques and feeling, through the technique of breathing and focusing at the spiritual eye and remembering the light, suddenly it all opens up. And you're feeling this huge inner reality that you realize is vaster than most of the stuff that you identify with in normal day-to-day waking consciousness. And that is what it's all about. That's our connection to that higher reality, to that cosmic light, to the reality that's beyond this kind of little ego identification. And all the movies that we see, it's all about how to remember that. And the darkness is just simply the way God designed this show to keep it going, is to have this force of delusion that kind of makes us forget that light. You know, it's like, oh, darkness is a lot more enchanting, isn't it? How can Darth Vader take himself so seriously? But he does, and he attracts all these people that say, yeah, this is really fun. This is going to be better than doing the other stuff. And that kind of ties into where I want to know, I mean, those of us that are here just, you know, are by definition sort of attracted to understand these things, but there's a lot of people that aren't. And actually I respect them too, you know, people that are kind of what they would say avowed atheists, I think are rejecting forms that just seem really outdated and inappropriate and don't relate to their lives, which is true. And I respect that. And I just am curious, I ask myself this, how do I, so I'll ask you too. How do you share light with people who maybe aren't agents of the darkness, but they don't really, you know, at this point anyway, it's hard for them to try to feel that there's a larger reality to tune into. Because I think the thing that defines a devotee, you know, or a spiritual aspirant, is somehow the acceptance inside that there is a larger reality behind ourselves. And that it's important to tune into that, to commune with that, to accept that, to take ourselves less seriously. How do you bridge the gap? Or do you? You know, because in this reading it says the darkness comprehended it not. It's not even a battle, it's just that it didn't relate to it, didn't understand it, didn't see the need for trying to think that there was a larger reality. So I'm asking you, do we share that? Can we share that? Are there ways of sharing the light? What do you say? Who's got a thought? Peter?
A smile, even when you're having a difficult time,
Mhm.
even when you're in a stressful situation, if you're still able to smile, people will see that and they'll wonder, "Well, why are you able to smile, you know, in this difficult
Yeah.
situation we're in?"
And I
And
would
it's just
say
the
that
light.
that has to reflect a sincere feeling of joy or light inside, because if you're, you know, I would, putting myself in their position, I might think, oh, that guy is just putting on a smile, you know, or is brainwashed or something. But I think, I mean, taking what you're saying to a further extent, I would say that when people actually feel that, then that touches them in a way that's beyond rationale. So they might not be able to say, oh yeah, you're right now, but later on they'll say, that guy just seemed happy, you know? I wonder how I might be, or something. So yeah.
To add to that, kind of be compassionate, or actually, if not love, still it is a kind of love that that person is unhappy at this point. But
Right.
it's
So
just loving.
actually, and that sort of tells you where the avatars are at. Because, I mean, think of them, they're dwelling in that bliss of God 24/7. And they voluntarily came back here to be with so many folks that aren't, that oppose them, and crucify them, you know, and make their lives difficult one way or the other by saying, no, you're wrong, that doesn't exist, I don't want it. And yet they do that because they feel so much joy that it's like, that's the only game in town, I'd rather just share it with you and hope that maybe you get a little bit of it than not. So yeah, when we can do that, I think part of it is by not taking ourselves so seriously, we realize that that same light that's in us is also in other people, everybody. But it's just, they don't realize it quite yet. And Jesus on the cross, you know, forgive them, they know not what they do. Wow, that's pretty amazing. So yeah, any other final thoughts? Yeah.
Just be what you want to see.
Be what you want to see. Okay, I like that. So was it Gandhi? Be the change that you want to see in the world?
I don't.
Or something
Yeah,
else?
Gandhi did say that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, Surrender, you can come on back now. So I would just like to say, you know, we're going to do the Festival of Light. So let's read it, let's absorb it in such a way that we just kind of tune into what is Swami sharing with us about how to bring light into ourselves and a way, you know, the way things work. How do we bring it into ourselves? How do we share it with others? But first, we'll have our offering. Just kidding.